are we not just like full force headed into an era as a collective society where personal self expression is becoming more and more limited? I'm not talking about misinformation. I'm not talking about spreading information out there that's not true. I'm talking about how a person expresses themselves. I don't usually talk about this topic, but I recently had an experience with somebody, no names, but I recently had an experience with somebody where I learned that I was basically not allowed to say something in the conversation. And I guess what I said came off as offensive, even though I wasn't trying to be offensive. And it was interesting because I was like, this is wild because I wasn't directing this towards the person that I was talking to or towards anybody that they know or even care about, but they still got offended by it. And I mean, I understand why. I'm not going to go into any of the logistics or anything, but what I'm more so looking at is the overall cancel culture that we seem to be. I mean, we're already in it. Cancel culture has been here for years and years. Um, but this is not about misinformation. This is about how any given individual chooses to talk or express themselves. And I want to introduce a model here to kind of help explore this and help people understand what it is that I believe is actually taking place here. Let me just say, first and foremost, get this out of the way to make this very understandable. Um, Personal self expression, specifically verbal, is a boundary. It's a person's boundary. How you talk, what you say, this, that, and the other. That is a person's boundary. Personal self expression, how you choose to express yourself, is a boundary. Usually, if somebody else tries to control how you express yourself verbally, or what you say or what you don't say, that is usually considered a boundary violation. We are in an era where people are really trying to stop people from saying certain things or from talking certain ways or like controlling this and that in any given individual, usually because they feel uncomfortable or unsafe with the entire dynamic or situation. And as somebody who really values my own personal self expression, the way that I talk, what I say, how I express myself, how I say things, how I express things. Um, like, for instance, I had somebody have a problem with me saying, wow, it's a beautiful fucking day outside. Hey, if you could just not use the word fucking. No, I can't just not use the word fucking. That's the way that I express myself. And I didn't attack you. I said nothing about you. I said nothing to you. I said it's a beautiful fucking day outside. I mean, quite honestly, fuck. You know? No pun intended, but like, um, it really, and this is honestly not on some like George Orwell shit, with just the control dynamic of society. And this kind of goes back to trust and control being two opposite sides of the same coin, right? Um, you feel the need to control people when trust has been broken in your life, in order for you to feel safe. Um, and it's just fascinating to me. The healthiest relationships out there are the relationships where the intersubjective space between self and other, between I and thou, is made very well known and aware, right? And boundaries are in place, right? So you can usually have honest, deep, and sincere conversations with people, and they won't feel offended. You won't feel offended because the healthiest I thou self other relationships between two people, right? Relationships of intersubjective space and everything, are those relationships where people actually know themselves. And when I say know themselves, I mean they've taken the time to go through therapy and they've actually taken deep dives into themselves and they really are self-aware, you know. These are the people out there that are the most challenging to offend. because they know themselves. They understand boundaries. They understand self and other. They understand where they begin, where they end, where the other person begins, where the other person ends. Um, they know their I enough to know the thou pretty well, even if the thou hasn't told them much about themselves. But this is what I would argue to be the foundation of, you know, where limited self expression and cancel culture is rooted in. And let me just say this real quick. I personally believe, based on everything that I've learned about cancel culture, that it is rooted in emotional immaturity. Because here's the thing, right? One of the biggest facets of emotional immaturity is black or white thinking, right? One of the facets of black or white thinking is the extremes, all or nothing. Cancel culture is basically all or nothing, right? Um, so people are being controlled on how they can express themselves, what they can say. And again, let me make it very clear that I am not at all about misinformation. If somebody is putting something out there that is untrue, which the internet is fucking filled with it, that's a problem. We don't want to have information that is false being out there. Um, Alternative facts are bullshit. There's no such thing. It's either true or it's not true, right? Um, that's just the reality of it, right? And I understand that that might look like a facet of black or white thinking, but what I'm really trying to focus on here is just how cancel culture and how trying to control how other people talk and what they say, not in the sense of like the subject, but like how they express themselves. You know, like people should be allowed to say, "Man, it is a beautiful fucking day outside." The person that has a problem with the word fuck or words like shit and damn and hell and this, that, and the other, right? Um, they're going to try to control other people and how they express themselves. Let me make it very clear right now that that is a boundary violation, right? If somebody just simply says, um, and I, this is also like if you are in someone's home, it might be different. But like if you're like out in public and you're just expressing yourself and someone has a problem with it, quite honestly, it's fucking ridiculous. People should be able to express themselves, but other people have things that make them feel uncomfortable. This, that, and the other. Based on what I've learned over the past like 5 to 10 years now, is that people seem to be more and more trying to control how each other express themselves. And when I say that, I'm not referring to how a person directs their words towards somebody else and maybe attacks somebody else, but more so just how somebody expresses themselves. I think it's absolutely batshit ridiculous that somebody would be uncomfortable with somebody else saying the word fuck, especially when it's not directed towards anybody. But it's like we're headed into an era where people's personal self-expression is being like compressed and limited and um, like controlled. I think that controlled is probably the best word to use for it. Um, but the fascinating thing is that I think that people that have been controlled want to control other people, right? Like people that have been traumatized in the house sometimes end up being bullies. That's a channel for their rage. That's a channel for their pain, right? People that have been controlled usually want to control other people. People that have been told that they can't do this or that, or that they're limited to saying this or that and not this or that, that's control. And let me just make it very clear again: how you express yourself, how you talk, right? If you say it's a beautiful fucking day outside, that's your boundary. That's your boundary of personal self-expression verbally, right? And anybody that says that you're not allowed to say that, especially when it's out in public, that's a boundary violation. And I feel like we're headed into more and more of that as a society. Um, I understand and am sensible to the whole matter of being in someone's home and being careful what you say. Um, I wouldn't, unless my life was in danger by somebody, and I could clearly sense that, and they were giving me reason to believe that. I wouldn't control how somebody talks if they enter my home, because I think I should end off with this because I think that this is one of the most important facets of what I'm saying here. If you control how somebody talks, how somebody expresses themselves, how are you going to fully know them? The healthiest relationships out there are about intimacy and depth, right? And I've really been sitting with this because I've been looking at all the people that have tried to control me and how I talk and how I express myself, and I'm like, okay, so you're missing out on at least like 25 to 50% of who I am, what I am, how I am, why I am as a person, right? The I mean, I'm kind of speechless because it's like all right, so you don't feel comfortable with the way that I express myself, how are you gonna fucking know me? You know? And I think that it's a boundary violation to push past. I mean, it's already a boundary violation to like try to control how people express themselves, which has a lot to do with cancel culture, has a lot to do with this, that, and the other, and how you talk about things and um, everything, right? But like talking about intimacy, talking about connection, talking about knowing a person. How are you really going to know a person if you want to control and limit like 25 to 50% of who the fuck they are? You're not. You're not going to have a healthy, deep connected relationship with them. The I thou dynamic, the intersubjective space is going to be fucked up. It's going to be corrupted. It's going to be confusing, and it's not really going to go that far, right? Let me make this very clear. Boundaries and depth are required to know a person, right? Um, that doesn't happen in one fucking setting. And if it does, it's not healthy because that is the all or nothing dynamic, right? You're not going to know a person, in my opinion at least. I'm not claiming any of this as truth or as fact. In my opinion, you are not going to know a person if you control and limit them. And that says a lot about cancel culture and about the direction that we're headed in as a society. Because, I mean, I'm not the only one. I know that other people see it everywhere else. Um, I've never intended to disrespect anybody, and I don't direct for a majority of everything. I don't direct anything negative towards anybody, right? Unless it's for like healing purposes and stuff. Um, People are not bad. The actions that they do sometimes are questionable and even potentially unhealthy, right? It's never about the person; it's about the action. You can separate a person from their actions, because the action is the behavior. Behaviors are changeable. The person is the person. Um, I just find that very fascinating. Uh, I'm not concerned about what we're headed into because I have absolutely no problem in cutting people out of my life that have any belief that they can control or limit how I express myself. Personally, that's my boundary. Um, I understand that the go-to is just to cut people out, and that's not healthy. That's not extreme. That's not all or nothing. That's recognizing that somebody has violated my boundary of personal self-expression, of just me saying, "Man, it's a beautiful fucking day today. It's a beautiful fucking day in the neighborhood." Just kidding. But really, like, it's just I personally believe that it's getting to be too much, which is why I really value people that allow me to just be myself and they don't try to control how I express myself. I've met them, I'm close with them, no names, but yeah, we are headed into a very interesting era. I mean, cancel culture is already here. I'll end off with all of this. Cancel culture is already here, which is the all or nothing thinking rooted in emotional immaturity. Um, I mean the whole misinformation thing's a different story. People are being canceled because they say something out of like personal expression. Wild. Um, but yeah, boundaries are boundaries. Personal self expression is a boundary. Period. That's just the way that it is. And somebody else trying to control or limit somebody's personal self expression is a boundary violation. It is a boundary violation.